All right, so this is the foundation tier section of questions. Question 12. A company wants to make a glass to hold a cold drink. They are considering materials A and B. Look at the life cycle assessments for a glass made out of materials A and B. So we've got the energy used, the greenhouse gases made in each case, and then the life cycle assessment so far shows us the extraction of the raw materials, the manufacturing, the transportation, and whatever process W is. Complete the table to show the totals for each column. So I'm just going to add these up, do it with a calculator just to make sure. And then another thing you can do to make sure that you haven't accidentally slipped and mistyped something is put those numbers in again and subtract. So you go 8.9 minus 2 minus 1.5 minus 0.4 minus 5. As long as that equals 0, that's a sign that you have done it correctly and not made a mistake when typing something in. Okay, right. Part A done. Write down the name for process W. Well, process W is going to be the one that the company is able to measure. There are two processes that are missing at the moment from the life cycle assessment, and that's the product's use and the product's disposal. Now, a company has no control over the impact of a product's use. That's down to the consumer. So this one that they can measure must be the disposal, because they know how it's going to be disposed of, what materials, what processes it's going to undergo. It costs more to transport glasses made from material B. Suggest a reason why. Well, the only reason it's going to cost more is if you need to have more energy or more fuel used for the transportation, and that's going to be if B is heavier or more dense. So B could be more dense. Or you could say more energy or fuel is needed. Which material should the company choose? Justify your answer for 2 marks. Now that means we need to choose the very obvious answer. I think we can all see that it's A, and then give both our justifications, 1 for each mark. So A, because it uses less energy and it produces less CO2 overall. Okay, question 13. The table shows some hydrocarbons from crude oil. We've got methane, propane, and butane. Now, I'm going to look at parts A and B together, but I think it's easier to do part B, and then that jogs our memory for part A. So it says nonane is another hydrocarbon from crude oil. It contains 9 carbon atoms. Predict the formula of nonane. And then it says write down the name of this homologous series of hydrocarbons. Now, homologous series is a family of compounds, and we know about 2 of them. Okay, we know about alkanes and alkenes. Now, looking at these, they all end in ane, so these are the alkanes. And we should know that alkanes have the general formula of CnH2n plus 2, which we could have worked out from the clues they've given us, but if we can just remember this, it's going to be much easier. So for part A, they've told us that it's got 9 carbon atoms, so N is equal to 9, so it's C9H 2 times 9 plus 2, which is 18 plus 2, which is equal to 20. So C9H20. Then for question 14, the reaction between sulfur dioxide and oxygen is reversible. So we've got 2 SO2 gas plus O2 gas reversibly goes to 2 SO3 gas. In a closed system, the reaction between sulfur dioxide and oxygen reaches a dynamic equilibrium. Well, we need to be thinking, what does dynamic equilibrium mean? It means when you've got a situation in a closed system where the forward and backward reaction rates are equal and the concentrations of the reactants and the products are not changing. So then it says use a symbol from the list to complete the sentence. At equilibrium, the rate of the forward reaction is, and I've literally just said the answer, equal to the rate of the reverse reaction. What is meant by the term reversible reaction? Well, it means that the products can form the reactants or that the reaction can go in both directions. Name one source of sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere. Well, sulfur dioxide comes from burning fossil fuels that haven't properly been treated to remove their sulfur impurities. Okay. It also gets produced by volcanoes. And then describe two problems caused by the release of sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. Now we need to think, what do we know that sulfur dioxide causes? Well, it causes acid rain. So what is the problem that acid rain causes? Well, there are loads. We can say it damages forests. We can say that it corrodes buildings made of marble or limestone. We can also talk about how it causes respiratory problems like asthma. We're not allowed to say that it causes acid rain because acid rain in and of itself is not the problem. The problem is what the acid rain does. So we've got to say what the acid rain causes. That is problematic. And finally, the table shows some relative atomic masses. Calculate the percentage by mass of oxygen in SO2 and give the answer to 1 decimal place. So if I'm calculating the percentage by mass, I've got to look at the total mass, so the relative formula mass of sulfur dioxide. So that's equal to 1 sulfur atom and 2 oxygen atoms, which is 1 times by 32.1 plus 2 times by 16.0, which is equal to 64.1. Then I've got to look at the mass of the oxygen there, which is equal to 16.0 times by 2, because there are 2 oxygen atoms, which is 32. And then my percentage of oxygen is going to be the mass of the oxygen divided by the total mass and multiplied by 100, which gives me an answer of 49.92199, etc. They've asked for it to 1 decimal place, so I want to look at 1 decimal place. My 2 doesn't round up any further, so I can get rid of that, and I get 49.9.